Te Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to Tuesday's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're on the first canto, chapter 12, text number 28, and the title is the birth of Emperor Parikshit. So it's great to continue on this amazing story of Parikshit Maharaj's birth and what an important personality he is. Can you imagine what it would be like today if Emperor Parikshit was being born? And very soon he would clear out all the so-called political leaders, because he is an exemplary leader, the wisest person. But the fact is that by us actually studying Srimad Bhagavatam and the birth of Emperor Parikshit, we are also bringing him into the, through our consciousness as servants of Krishna, we are actually bringing his, you could say, his incarnation. It's like the Srimad Bhagavatam is what Krishna left it. So it when Krishna left this planet, he left after him the Bhagavatam. And we know as well that from Srila Prabhupada that the Krishna is also there in his holy name. So he's there in the Shastra, in his holy name. The Srimad Bhagavatam, the spotless Purana. So when we hear about these personalities, it's not absolutely different from them actually being here. He reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die while they are living still and sound. A Vaishnav dies to live, and while living learns to spread, or while living spreads the holy name around. So all these personalities, they are not just like normal people. This is a great emperor. This was Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, who is the son of Arjuna, who's an eternal friend of Krishna. So we have a very significant personality here who's, especially when we pray in parampara, that means that we're in disciplic succession. These devotees are there. It's not as if they're they were gone and they're never there again. But no, they are actually there. And that's why the words of the Bhagavatam are so powerful, because they invoke the presence of these wonderful devotees. And if there's anything that's needed so much today, it's the presence of these wonderful devotees, because of the massive confusion and the sowing of distrust, the sowing of confusion, the absolute, what's the word you would use? How the false ego is predominating everywhere. The lack of ability to deal with one's own false ego in this world, which then actually brings about a whole mass of egos who are always in conflict because they don't know how not to be in conflict. So the birth of Emperor Parikshit is a personality who is born to regulate the situation in the material world, to promote the devotees, to give great power to the devotees, to give them the position to act in this world, and also to subjugate the non-devotees who will want to bring in this era of confusion and distrust and constant conflict. Basically, it's manda samandat mataya manda bhagya upadruta. It's always quarrel and hypocrisy. These are the things which are most prevalent. And the only way to deal with that is is to try to become Krishna conscious, to attract the mercy of Krishna, to become qualified to attract the mercy of Krishna, so that one's activities are in line with Krishna, and they are in line with Krishna's purpose on this planet, which is to bring the living entities back to their original nature. Okay, without further ado, we shall get on to the Canto 1, Chapter 12, text number 28. Jigyasitatma yatartyo munurvyasa sutaraso hit vedam nripagangayam yasyat kutabobayam. And the translation, I won't do the word for word translation because we shortish time. After inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness. Purport. Material knowledge means ignorance of the knowledge of one's own self. Philosophy means to seek after the right knowledge of one's own self, or the knowledge of self-realization. Without self-realization, philosophy is dry speculation, or a waste of time and energy. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the right knowledge of one's own self, and by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one can get free from material attachment and enter into the kingdom of fearlessness. This material world is fearfulness. Its prisoners are always fearful, as within a prison house. In the prison house, no one can violate the jail rules and regulations, and violating the rules means another term for extension of prison life. Similarly, we in this material existence are always fearful. This fearfulness is called anxiety. Everyone in the material life, in all species and varieties of life, is full of anxieties, either by breaking or without breaking the laws of nature. Liberation, or mukti, means getting relief from these constant anxieties. This is possible only when the anxiety is changed to the devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the chance to change the quality of anxiety from matter to spirit. This is done in the association of a learned philosopher, like the self-realized Shukadeva Goswami, the great son of Sri Vyasadeva. Maharaj Parikshit, after receiving warning of his death, took advantage of this opportunity by association with Shukadeva Goswami and achieved the desired result. There is a sort of imitation of this reciting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam by professional men, and their foolish audience thinks that they will get free from the clutches of material attachment and attain the life of fearfulness. Such imitative hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is a caricature only, and one should not be misled by such a performance of Bhagavatam Saptaha, undertaken by ridiculous, greedy fellows to maintain an establishment of material enjoyment. Amagana timirandasya jana jana shalakaya chaksharan militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagada Mayam Dadati Svapadantikam Namo Vishtubhadai Krishna Bastai Bhutale Srimati Satsruptas Goswami Nitinamane Nama Om Vishtubhadai Krishna Bastai Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvashesha Shanivadi Paschata Deshatarine. One of the main points that really resonates with me is this whole point of anxiety. And funny, it's amazing how you get new inspiration and new lights when reading Bhagavatam. I've been operating under a particular understanding for many years, And only after reading this purport do I get a different perspective. And it was right from the very beginning when I came to Krishna Consciousness, when I listened to my spiritual master. He's speaking in Trinity College in Dublin back in 1982. And he was speaking about the discussion between Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami. But in that discussion, he spoke about something which did really resonate with me, and that was the reality of anxiety in my life. I wasn't aware what was the problem. I often asked, what is the problem? I even asked, what's wrong with me? You know, why am I feeling this way? Why am I not happy? And then when he explained about the nature of anxiety, immediately I understood, that's what's wrong. I'm in anxiety all of the time. I'm in anxiety. And it's not only me that's in anxiety, but everybody is in anxiety. And you can take just the example. You go out for a walk. I mean, we have some trees where we are and some squirrels who are now coming out again after their hibernation. But you come near them, they look at you, and then you get a bit like closer, and then they dart up the tree. And because they're in anxiety, because they think this big human guy is going to come and do something to him. Same as the birds. You give some bread in the garden, and they're out there all eating, chirping. They're looking around. There's, everywhere they're looking, where they're trying to eat. This is their enjoyment, but still they're in anxiety. And then you open the door, and whoosh, all the birds fly away. So, this anxiety is there, and I didn't understand that that's what was wrong. I was in anxiety because of my previous material conditioning. I was in this world. I was thrown in, and there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just me, and then eventually I understood that this anxiety is all pervasive, actually, in the material world. And I was so amazed that somebody was pointing this out, because before that, everyone was pointing out how wonderful things are, and how everybody, how great they are, and how they're doing so wonderfully well. So I was fooled by that narrative that everybody else was happy, but I wasn't. So it wasn't until that started to emerge that I actually got some understanding. So that the nature of anxiety. So now, Prabhupada here in this purport talks about a different type of anxiety. He says that that Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the chance to change the quality of anxiety from matter to spirit. So I was right all along, There is anxiety, and I'm in anxiety, but it's not that the anxiety stops. We just become anxious to spread Krishna consciousness. That's where the anxiety happens. But in fact, there is an amazing happiness in that type of anxiety as well. On one level, in Bhagavad Gita explains that, so how can there be happiness without peace? When we have knowledge, then we actually have peace. We can have peace from knowledge. And when we're peaceful, we're happy. It's explained in the Bhagavad Gita. I won't be able to locate that verse at the moment. How can there be happiness without peace? So peacefulness it really comes about from knowledge, which means self-realization, and that's what it's spoken about here. Right knowledge, material knowledge means ignorance of knowing of one's own self. Philosophy means to seek after the right knowledge of one's own self, or the knowledge of self-realization. Because that's where we're peaceful, when we have some knowledge of ourselves. We know who we are, we know why we're here, we know what we're meant to be doing, and we know how to do it. So Krishna Consciousness shows us how to be a devotee of Krishna. So one of the main aspects of our attempt to be a devotee of Krishna is by us acting on behalf of Krishna. Krishna says that you, O Savisachi, can be but an instrument in the fight. So we're trying to be instruments of Krishna because that's our original nature. And by being an instrument of Krishna, we can relate very, very nicely with Krishna. We can get that happiness because, but also another very important part is we can get Krishna's mercy. Sarva dharmam parityajam mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papayibhyo mokshikshami masucha. It means abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. Now, what is that surrender? Like, there's 6 processes of surrender. One of them is to just depend on Krishna's mercy. That is a very elevated position to be in, because most of the time we're depending on our mind, on our false ego. These are our go-to positions in material life. This is how we survive. We're so used to depending on ourselves and our ability to fight our corner, to be the rugged individualist. And that's what we take shelter on. We may say we're a devotee, but then when we're put into anxiety, we resort to our false ego and fight back. But how to act in Krishna consciousness is given very clearly. So we're trying to develop the mode of goodness. We're trying to act in the mode of goodness. And if we act in the mode of goodness, then we're more likely to attract Krishna's mercy. And that means that Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakta Uttama. It means that Krishna controls our mind and controls our senses. Now, does that mean that we, surrender completely our individuality? No, it doesn't. It actually means that we understand our individuality. We understand who we are in relation to Krishna. Our real nature starts to emerge. That nature which is beyond false ego, it's more subtle. Kamanak Buddhare Vicha Hankara Itima and me Binner Pad Pakati Astida. These 8 Boomer Apo Nalavayu Kamanak. The 8 coverings of the last covering is the false ego. But more subtle than the false ego is the real ego, is the soul proper. And that is the part and parcel of Krishna. Nicely explained by Sanjay the other day, that we're part and parcel of Krishna. It's simultaneous one with Krishna but different from Krishna. So the part of us which is one with Krishna learns how to act properly for Krishna as Krishna's servant, and then we can understand ourselves better, who we actually are. And that's where so much happiness is released. So then the anxiety then becomes the anxiety to serve Krishna, because we want to make sure Krishna is happy, not that we're satisfied. Our senses are gratified. We can get this, we can get that, where we can fulfill our desires, our material desires. No, we have deep spiritual desires, and they're the desires that we want to fulfill. That's where we want to be. So how can we do that? How can we attract Krishna's mercy? Well, one of the ways that we attract Krishna's mercy is that we tolerate tate kumabam siksamikshamanam bunja ivatma kutam vipad. I'm not sure of the exact verse of that, the Sanskrit of it anyway. But one of the ways is that we tolerate. We tolerate ourselves. We tolerate our false ego. We learn to live with the false ego, and learn that any of the trouble that we're given in this lifetime is given by Krishna. Because once we take the spiritual life, it's not that our karma takes over. No. If we take the spiritual life, Krishna will start to send us tests. And those tests are there to purify us of our impurities. That will allow us to become purified so that we can then recognize Krishna when Krishna appears. And then we will get used to the fact that Krishna is acting through us. We will get comfortable even that we're acting on behalf of Krishna. Not through any sense of our own false ego, no, not at all. But through the sense that we've surrendered to Krishna and Krishna can act through us. So it's not that we're nothing. Sometimes humility is considered to be, oh, I'm no good, you first, I'm no use, no. Actual humility means to be very bold for Krishna. Prabhupada gave that definition. I would like to find the exact references. But that's what actual humility means. It means that we're dependent that Krishna is going to act through us in his service. And it means that we've performed our sadhana sufficiently. We've been sufficiently serious about our sadhana that we've done everything that's in our power, that we're not going to act on the false ego platform. So it is a positive arrangement. That's all we can do. We can do our best. Then it's up to Krishna to act through us as Krishna desires. So we have to be very diligent and very determined. This is the word that's used many, many times in Bhagavad Gita. To be very determined. So when we're undergoing difficulties, when our mind is giving us trouble, when adhyatmika, adhibhautika, adhidaivika, by trouble given by the elements, trouble given by our own mind, and trouble given by other living entities, when Krishna is allowing that trouble to magnify in ourself, and when we're struggling and we're trying to chant and we're trying to read and our mind is distracted, at that time, that is when we're really called upon to draw on all our reserves, to draw on all of our previous conduct, to draw on all of our knowledge, of our advice given by our spiritual masters, to draw on their good qualities. We surrender to them. We pray to them. To help us through this difficulty. One time it said, who is your spiritual master? Because we have many spiritual masters. And the answer was given, that is the one who is in your heart. The one who comes to mind in your heart. So we may have many, many spiritual masters, which is a great boon, because there's so many wonderful devotees in the Krishna. We have our Diksha Guru, we have our Shiksha Gurus. So in our line, it is who we are drawing the inspiration from. And we're so lucky that we can draw inspiration from many, many sources. But that's when there's no point in relying on our false egos. No point in having many Shiksha Gurus if we're not going to use them, in the sense of we're not going to surrender unto them or depend on them or depend on their instructions. As it was spoken of recently in one of the verses that we read, that Krishna is non-different from his instruction. The spiritual master is non-different from his instruction. So if we serve the instruction of the spiritual master, again, I like to give some examples of things like that. Yesterday I was listening to the Gorpanim class given in ISV, ISKCON Silicon Valley, and generally what they do is on these festival days they have the report to to Lord Chaitanya, or whosever appearance day it is, on their particular marathon or their exploits, their book distribution exploits, and I'm a person who likes to hear the philosophy, and some of these classes go on for 2 to 3 hours, so I was a little bit reluctant to get into it, and then I could, oh yeah, they're going to celebrate what they're going, and then they're going to do a fundraiser to get more people to distribute. So yesterday they were distributing for they wanted to get the last fundraiser in to distribute sets of Sri Chaitanya Charitamritas, and I was just on the way home in the van after working in the restaurant. So I wanted something. I liked to listen to a bit of philosophy at that time and kind of ease down. But then I said, well, yeah, and it was great because I had got some of the class which Vaisheshika Prabhu gave, but I had listened to a bit of it earlier, so then it was going back into the into the auction. It's like an auction actually, and I thought, oh well, I don't know if I'm gonna really relish this, but then I heard it and I was absolutely beaming when I heard everyone was, I'll sponsor 2, no, I'll sponsor 4, I'll do 1, I'll do 6, I'll do 1, I'll do 10, and they had all these people online, and then some, I'll do 50, and it was absolutely ecstatic. And Vaisheshika Prabhu, he made this point, which I thought was a really, really important point. He was saying, I wonder, should I do this? This is an important festival day, so should I actually, everyone knows we do these, and it's maybe people will get turned off by it. And he said, no, actually this is the fire of sacrifice. We're meant to sacrifice for Krishna, especially on these days. So this is the fire of Sankirtan, and we're offering our 2 sets of Bhagavatam, 4 sets of Bhagavatams. We're offering this into the fire of the yajna to please Krishna. And what about that instruction to please Prabhupada by distributing his books? I mean, what an amazing yajna that they were performing, and they were just throwing. I was there driving home in the car, and I was beaming on this listening to them. I was laughing at the way people were distributing, and every time they do one, everyone would go Hari Bol, and the kids would all shout Hari Bol, and Vaisheshika Prabhu would shout out to the bottom of his lungs Hari Bol on this situation, and so it was an absolutely ecstatic performance actually, and so many, like literally hundreds of sets of Chaitanya Charitamrita were pledged. So that's not a small book. I'm just reading it at the moment, and they were doing a special offer, of $99. You can still do it, by the way, anybody who wants to. We don't have any sets in Ireland, but we have 10 sets of Bhagavatams here. So if anyone was interested in that. Anyway, I like to keep these classes quite short because people are busy and they can't be listening. And I know some people listen to the class, which I'm very appreciative of. So just to conclude, there is this Bhagavatam is like our yajna. We are inaugurating the yajna by having Bhagavatam reading every day. The more people who read Bhagavatam, the more then that the Bhagavatam becomes alive in the community. The way they talk about this virus in the community, it's in the community. Well, we want to get the Bhagavatam in the community because that will actually destroy any negative virus that's in the community. The more people who read Bhagavatam, and as I said, I have 10 sets at least, so if anybody's interested, get in touch. We want to distribute this Bhagavatam and we want people to be reading Bhagavatam, to have it in their home and to consult Bhagavatam and to read Bhagavatam every day, to read Bhagavad Gita every day, 1 chapter. And we want to have classes which are doing this as well. We want to have classes which are promoting Bhagavatam. So this is the humble attempt, 7:30 Tuesday, March 30th, second day of the week. Sanatan Govinda Das has given the first class. This is the humble attempt to keep Bhagavatam to the forefront of transmission in, these words are kind of double-edged swords, I suppose. The transmission of Bhagavatam for 2 days a week, and hopefully eventually we will have a situation when there will be a class where there will be many people attending and many people will be attending online. So thank you very much for listening. Srimad Bhagavatam ki